What's up, you absolutely wonderful Magenta loving friends of mine? Joseph here with, you guessed it, another question related to proving your expert status. This one was a little bit interesting. It was a little more difficult than I thought it was going to be, but we're going to dissect this and I'm going to provide my answer. See, the cool thing about this is you all provided your answers and now I get to provide my answer. It does not mean my answer is correct. This is just my opinion based off of how I've read the documentation, that information. I would love to hear your thoughts on this answer. So drop them in the comments below and let's kick off this conversation. But before we actually do kick off this conversation, a couple of things. First, the 2023 Certification Challenge is underway. Join us, get certified, and we're really excited about this. So, this has been our yearly deal for several years now, and we have seen great results. Community gathers together. We lift up the people that are working to achieve these certifications, and it works. So I'm really excited. Take a look at this. These are the people who answered the question this week. Well done here. Unfortunately, though, there was a little bit, maybe perhaps it was my question, the way it was worded. Perhaps it wasn't. I don't know. So there were some definitely different answers than what I was thinking. So let's talk through what I was thinking, and we can go from there. Take a look at this. You are working with a developer who operates under the pseudonym of AppyDev. AppyDev. I kind of like that. It sounded like a cool name. I had another name, but this is actually based off of a real conversation I had. I don't know. It was a couple weeks, a week or so ago, maybe less than that. Yeah. So this is a legit conversation, real world scenario that I worked through with an AppyDev API developer. But AppyDev, we'll just call him that here. Let's move on. You are tasked with assisting on a API integration for graphing statistics about active carts. Again, legit conversation I had. In a previous era, you built an asynchronous calculator to identify cart statuses or like calculate the current status. The result is stored in quote status. It's stored in a different table, in other words, than the quotes themselves. The status is exposed in the quotes extension attributes object. You are having a conversation with Sir AppyDev about how to tally carts with specific statuses. Which ideal solution do you agree to? All right. Let's see what our options are. Okay. Have AppyDev download all cart objects and filter by the status field, obviously an extension attributes, or have AppyDev add a search criteria field in the API request for, now I can't even say API, I want to say Appy. Okay, for the status field, or C, build a filter processor to understand a new status filter. This one is interesting because B sure seems right. But check out this part of the question right here. So we have our status that we need to filter by, but the result is stored in quote status. This status is exposed in the quotes extension attributes objects. So we can't filter by values exposed in extension attributes. There's an important missing link right there. Take a look at this. All right, so we can have AppyDev, Sir AppyDev, download all these cart objects and filter by the status field. Is that a good option or no? That's a terrible option. That's just not a good option. It's bad, hits the server performance hard. There's no reason for this. So we axed that out. I don't think any of you chose that one either. And I'm sorry if somebody did. I'm not making fun of you in the slightest. But this is the consideration that led me to say that A is not a good answer because of server performance. It just wouldn't. It's not a good long-term solution. Because ultimately the thing is we're dealing with carts. Like there's a ton of abandoned carts always. Carts are not always going to be just like start to finish. It's not always going to be like that. B would not work out of the box because we have search criteria doesn't have any understanding of like other values or attributes or extension attributes. And ultimately we have quote and quote status in this case. Quote status is a completely separate table, of course, with a foreign key association, but Magento doesn't have any magic to be able to understand that. So that's, we scratch B off. So it leads us C is the only option that's available. Build a filter processor to understand a new status filter. And look at me. I should have brought that up one line right there. How about that? This is basically the only option at this point. I want to quickly run you through what does it take to get this set. Like filter processor. Clearly, a lot of you have never worked with this. So may I be perhaps the first one to enlighten you on this? I would love to have that honor. So take a look at this here. We have, this is our data structure. And I'm using a slightly different terminology here. I'm using locations and print methods, kind of based off of our Art of E-commerce Debugging project, which is kind of somewhat patterned off a real world scenario that we have worked on in the past. Not the same in the slightest, just kind of provide some basic structure there. In this case here, we have our locations, and this is what we will be querying here. But let's say we want to filter, and this is ultimately a little bit backwards, but you can live with this. We just want to basically say, we want to just pull on any association for this example. Obviously, in real world scenario, this would be quote unquote status in this example. But we want to say, let's say we have this association here, location, print method ID, but we want to find all locations that have a specific print method ID associated with it. In this case, there's not even associated by extension attributes, just not even happening there. So how do we do this? How do we expose this? Well, it's actually fairly simple, and we use a filter processor. First, let me back up and show you what our Postman request looks like here. So we're using search criteria. We have filter groups with 0 filter group. We have a filter, field, value, and conditions. Basically what we're getting to here, setting a field, setting a value, and then a condition. So we could turn these off, and I'm having some problems with the varnish here, so I have to manually increment this increment ID here. All right, and so we do need a search criteria here. So we could always throw in search criteria is equal to blank, or just an empty array, and this will do the trick. And we'll skip those here, and we get options back here. Right? Okay. Ultimately, we do have 3 options here. We can add a fourth. Let's say fourth. Let's say top 4, just to verify this here. All right, just to prove that I'm not doing something funky here for you. All right, so we have 4 that popped in right here. Nice. Okay, now let's filter this back here, and we'll click on send. Now we'll notice we did pop in some other code right here. Now you'll notice this option number 4 disappeared. Now here's the deal. This print method ID has nothing to do with anything. And this is going to force us to do a deep dive into a very specific line of code here. Let's take a look at this. So I am in our repository, and we have this interesting line of code here called a collection processor. This has a lot of magic behind it. And, well, actually, for the sake of some interest here, let's jump in and see exactly what this does. So we create a collection, but we have this collection processor of type. This is really important for you to remember here, collection processor interface. I'm going to step into this. We're not going to explain this. There's no reason to go too deep into this. But for the sake of example, we see this processors. We have different types of processors, filters, sorting, and pagination. So the first one would be a filter processor. We're going to step into this. Processors process. We have our search criterion collection. So the filter processor is going to look through the filter groups. And this is where you dive into whether this is an AND logic or an OR logic, which makes search criteria pretty powerful. So inside of our filter group, we have get filters, and is applied custom filter, is this get custom filter for field. All right. So let's step in here. Here's our field name. So this is our API filter. Filter field is print method ID. We're going to step over this, cut this custom filters. All right, here is print method ID. Okay, so what I did was I had injected in DIXML, I injected a new filter processor in here. And you'll notice we see right here, instance of custom filter processor. Let's come back down here into our code, into etcdi.xml, and we will come down here to the bottom. And what I did is I found our filter processor class. I added in custom filters argument here, and we have a name of print method ID, and we have our location print method filter ID. So what ends up happening here is set custom filters, the field name. So whatever you want to set this field name to be, whether this is quote status, whether this is status, whether this is print method ID, whatever it is, you basically name this in this custom filters array, whatever you want whatever you set this want this search criteria field to be. And that's the magic association right there. Happens right here with this custom filter key. All right, so we have a hit on this. We have the filters. It's doing some checking here, and then we return the filter. Okay, if there is a custom filter applied, we can run this. Now, one thing I did not pull out previously, which probably would have been a good idea, would have been to have copied some of this code here. This would have been a good idea because this is a little bit more advanced in the code that I wrote. And the other thing is that I missed about this that is applied. And we see that if it's not applied, it's going to actually go try to apply it again outside of the custom filter. So we do want to return a true out of this. Return true. I think the way Magento has been architected, I don't think it causes a problem if we don't, but it's still a good idea too. All I'm doing here is I am joining in this other table, and I am filtering it down. As simple as that. So using a custom filter processor allows us to create any different types of, any type of additional filter. We can bring in other logic, anything like that. We can also use, there's also custom sorting filters, I believe, or sorting as well. We have a lot of power that's available to us to create a better API experience using a filter processor. Now, I would say the biggest downside is there's no intrinsic documentation about filter processors as in for Swagger. So when it comes down to creating something for Swagger, you're going to have to document it somewhere else, Confluence, because there's no way to get that exposed out through Swagger, to my knowledge. So at the end of the day, you have to document it somewhere else, and you'll get it done. So this is the rundown on filter processors. I highly recommend you use them. You're going to find great benefit out of them. Good job. Take care. And if you don't think this is correct, drop me a note in the comments. If you do think this is correct, drop me a note in the comments. I wish to hear from you either way. It makes my day.